Hi crafty friends, it's Donna here, and I've got a couple of fun cards to share with you today. For today's cards, we're all about die cutting. And the hero of today's cards is this Love Bug car builder die set. It comes with a whole bunch of pieces all attached together. And I've actually left them attached because I'm a bomb for losing small dies, but you could easily separate them out with some small wire cutters. To begin with, I just cut everything from white paper and had a little bit of a jigsaw puzzle play at putting everything together. Then, for one of the cards, I'm going to ink blend the pieces. I'm using Picked Raspberry Distress ink, and my original idea was to blend these top layer parts of the car, I don't know the name of any part of a car, with a heavier hand. But later on, I go back and you'll see I make an adjustment to that. I'm going to use silver for the bumper, and I'm just wiping my ink pad over the top of that. This is an ink pad that I picked up at a craft show in Tokyo. I'll have a look around. If I can find it, I'll link to it. Otherwise, I'll link to a similar pad, a pigment silver pad. Once I'd done this front part, again, I know the names of nothing, I decided that they didn't stand out quite enough. So I've grabbed out some Festive Berries Distress ink, and I'm just going to go over the top with a light hand of the Festive Berries, just so that it's a slightly different colour to the bottom layer. And you can see that the contrast is much better now. Next, I've grabbed out my black Distress ink, and I'm colouring the tyres, the steering wheel, and my fingers with this ink. Honestly, if I did it again, I would just grab out a black marker or cut them from black paper right from the start. This was too messy. These here are the rims of the headlights, and so I'll do those in silver and the lights themselves in bright yellow. By now I've got a little bit smarter, and I've put those yellow headlights down onto some post-it tape which is face up so that they don't move around and I don't have to put ink all over my hands. Next, I'm going to glue my car together. It's a little bit like doing a jigsaw puzzle, making all the pieces fit together, but it didn't take too long. When I was a teenager, my school friends and I all decided that a pink convertible V-dub was the car of our dreams and was our aim in life. And of course, as I grew up, it didn't happen. And I was perfectly fine with that. But I remember going to Japan years later and going back to visit my host mother who I'd stayed with. And she was most affronted that I didn't have the car that 18-year-old me had promised I was going to get. These days, I'd have to say that my car of choice is probably a train, because somebody else can do the driving and I can read a book. I'm attaching the front bumper bar, but I'm going to leave the number plate while I think about what sort of card I want to make. I'm attaching the wheels by adding a little bit of glue at the back, and then just popping my car down and picking the tyres up behind. And I'm going to do the same thing with the steering wheel, but I've decided to make my car a right-hand drive, and so my steering wheel is going to be on the other side to the example car. For my second car, I'm going to repeat that process, only this time I've learnt my lesson about the ink, and I'm going to be using some of these shimmer papers and cutting each of the bits out in the right colours right from the get-go. Gold and silver, and 2 different reds from the Blooming Blossoms pack. And I'm going to use some black cardstock for my wheels. I'm just adding those little bits of paper behind the die and then running that through. I still haven't bothered to cut it apart. This time around, I went with a silver steering wheel. Very fancy. I decided to add some highlights to this car, a little bit of shining in the sun, and I added that around the edges and also on the bonnet to give it some shaping. Next, we're going to turn these into some fun cards. And I'm going to use this laughing animal stamp set. I'm squeezing that giraffe out of just a tiny bit on the side that's left over from cutting that car out. And I'm going to use the dies to cut it, although I only want the giraffe. So I'll bring my scissors in at the end and just tidy up the bottom. This bottom part won't be showing, so it's not so important. Next, I'm going to ink blend a bit of a scene for the car and the giraffe to go on. And I'm using the cloud stencil, and I'm going to be using the edges of this rather than the individual clouds. Once I've masked that off, just with some scrap paper for now, I'm going to put in my first layer of clouds. When that's done, I want to have the next row of clouds look different. And there's a few ways that I can do that. First thing I'm going to do is to use the other end of the stencil. Once that's done, I have many options. I could flip the stencil over, but that would require washing it, and I can't be bothered with that. So I'm going back to the first side and a different part. And then back to the second side, and again, just a different part of the stencil. Finally, I'm just going to blend a little bit of ink along my horizon. Once I've done that, I'll peel back my post-it tape and replace it so that just a tiny bit of that blue is showing. I prefer to err on the side of having a bit of crossover rather than a white line between the two. Then, using a different ink blending brush, this one I use for all my yellows, I'm just going to blend in a little bit of sand. Next, I'll cut the panel with a stitched rectangle die. I'm using the metric sizes this time. And then in goes my giraffe. I want him to be as tall as I possibly can, so that it's most improbable, and also I'd like him to be at a jaunty angle. The sentiment comes from the All Occasions Sentiments set. I've chosen this Smile Sweetheart sentiment, and I'm going to use just the smile. I've cut that off, and then I'm using my Memento Tuxedo black marker to go around and hide all of that white core of the card. Once I have my giraffe where I want and suitably angled, I'm just going to stick him onto the back with a bit of washi tape. Once that's done, I can pop my car and my giraffe all as one up with some foam tape. You'll see in the final pictures that I also added another sentiment from the same sentiment pack. I've used the Sprinkle Hearts stencil and also some worn lipstick ink to blend some hearts onto this background paper, using a heavier hand in the middle and then blending off towards the side. I've decided that I will use the number plate that came with the car for this one, and so I've attached that across the bumper bar with some glue, and I'm just popping in those hearts. For this card, I've chosen the Bright Days Ahead embossed cut-apart sheets for my sentiments, and there's one line there of pink sentiments that I think would be great. I'm going to use all three of these sentiments cut up and popped up with foam tape, along with the car. How cute are these guys? So there you have it. One die to make two quite different cards, both of which were a lot of fun. That's all for me for today. I'll be back soon with another card, so feel free to like and subscribe if you'd like to, and if not, I'll see you around. Bye for now.